Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at Chapter 10, and in order to do that, because Chapter 10 is all on hosts, and really the NetLab environment really isn't equipped with that because you'd have to have ISOs and things like that. I wanted to show you vSpar in action. Now, this is an older version of vSpar, but a lot of the topics that we're going to talk about are perfectly fine here because none of that has really changed. And so this is the actual NetLab environment that I build your pods in. So you can kind of see the different pods. In fact, these are the pods that you have right here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to tweak the hosts. And really what happens is, and big part of this topic is talking about the hardware. And in truth, it's really not hardware. We have a base machine that is a server out there and has a bunch of hardware, has a bunch of CPUs and has uh, memory and things like that and storage available to it. But the operating system, or these VMware boxes here, just call them boxes, it doesn't really have any direct knowledge about that hardware. What it does know is what we lie and tell it. And so really its hardware, even though the operating system doesn't know it, is actually software. And so looking at that, let me just pull up our book. Looking at that, these are the things that we're going to lie to it about. We're going to tell it about a CPU. We're going to tell it how many CPUs it's got, what kind, how much memory it has, how much disk space, network, stuff like that. And so that's really what we're going to tell it. So let's look at the next uh, things. And so we're looking over here, and we're looking at the different versions of vSpar. Now, uh, we're on vSpar 6, but this is really vSpar 6 here. Okay, so there are different versions within vSpar. And so you can see how time has gone on, and maximum memory for a long time was 1 TB. Well, now it's 4. This is what you're really supposed to see. Here you could do hard drives, IDE controllers. Oh my gosh! But don't worry, down here we have SCSIs, and we also have serial as well. So if you're familiar with that, you're not really expected to use the old parallel type connections. USB supported, believe it or not, floppy supported. Mouse, I'll tell you, I'm so grateful that they have a very good system for mouse and that kind of thing. SCSI adapters are supported. But you can see over time how it has uh, gotten more and more modern, and especially with the more current equipment. So vSpar 11, not vSpar, but version 11, we should say, uh, actually has support for SATA, and so does 10, whereas 7 and 8 do not. And so this list here just shows you how over time things have gotten better. So maximum serial ports 44432. So just go through this real quick and get a kind of a feel for, as time has gone on, how things have improved over time. Now, when you're creating a host, you have to think about, well, what kind of device do I want? How much hardware do I want? But the nice thing is let's say that I didn't give it enough memory. Well, you can always go back and give it some memory. It's not like a real piece of hardware where you had to install it in there and you bought it that much hardware, and now you've got to turn off the system, and it's just a pain to update any of the hardware. Not in this case. As long as the server has the capacity, you can actually, on the spot, on the fly, increase your hardware. And that's one of the neat, magical things about VMware. And so something we've talked about is the pooling of these resources. So let's say you have a 2 TB hard drive, but you're telling all your devices out there that they can have 100 gigabytes, and you do the math and you realize, hey, I'm actually promising 3 TB, whereas I only have 2. Well, the truth of the matter is most likely not all your users are going to need the full 100 gigs right away, and because of that, you're actually able to overpromise and just monitor as time goes on. And as you approach that 2 TB threshold, you buy more storage. And so this enables you to really use the memory and the CPUs effectively. So let's say you promise a particular VMware that they can have 4 gigs of RAM, but it's not using all 4. And so those resources can be transferred to another device that and that needs it. And so again, this pooling of resources is very, very powerful. Now, the next thing I want to look at is here are some improvements they've made over time. And one that I really appreciate really is the improved mouse, the ability to be in a host and be out of a host just by a couple keystrokes. There's no real latency between your moves, your keystrokes, things like that. So it's very, very important. Not keystrokes, I should say, but be able to release it out of uh, the uh, the device. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to move on, and we're actually looking at the console itself. So in VSpar, there's a couple ways you can open a console. Now, console is basically, hey, I want to open this device and take a look at what it looks like. So I'm going to come over here to one that's already open, go to vClient, and if I hit console over here, it actually opens up that console. So it looks like, someone is using VSpar, okay, the vClient, I should say. Okay, there's another way to open it. You can right-click it and just say open console, and here we have an open console. And so when you're designing these, you can actually deploy them, look at them, make changes to them. It's really, really nice. So those are two ways you can open the console. If you come in here, you have your summary tab. This is going to tell you all about this device. Okay, VMware Tools, out of date. You can suspend it, you can stop it, you can restart it, you can edit the settings. Excuse me. Edit settings is something I go to all of the time. This is where I can increase how many chips it has. You can come in here, change the network adapter. Hey, I can add one if I wanted to. Now this is an older version, so it's not as pretty as the newer versions, but it's still just as sophisticated in many ways. You can also get to edit settings over here, right-clicking it, say edit settings. It has to be shut down, though, normally for it to work there. Let's see. If I wanted to clone it now, I'm not a fan of creating a bunch of VMwares from the scratch. What I'll do is I'll create one that I really, really like. I should say host, not VMwares. One box, one host. And technically when I say host, actually, this is what I mean over here. But let's say I make a box, this vClient that I really, really like. It's got everything I want. So what I'm going to do is the first thing I do is I'm going to take a snapshot. Okay. The reason I'm going to take a snapshot is because if there's something happens, I can revert back to that. We're all good. The second thing I can do is I can create a template. Okay. So I can come in here and it will be the starting point of new VMwares. And so if I want to create a new box, I can just clone it from the template. Or I can do a clone. Now this is usually what I'll do in creating our class is I'll create a clone, I'll give it a name, I'll put it in a specific place, that kind of thing. And so this is a way that you can deploy a lot very, very quickly. Once you make the one you like, don't make it again, just build a new one from what you've built. Now we're going to talk about input-output, and that's basically priorities. So there's really not much I can show you here, but the idea is that you're going to, when you first create all these virtual machines, all these boxes, they all have um, equal privilege to all the resources. And what you can do is you can set your pass-through, your direct input-output pass-throughs. And what it will do is it will give a particular device preferential treatment. Okay. Now what I've done is I'm going to log into the vCenter on one of our hosts. Okay, and so this is your lab. So if I came in here and I right-click the host, this is what it looked like in this environment. This is a newer environment. So you can see here are my different devices. If I wanted to add something, you add it here. Let's see, video card. And so we can make a lot of adjustments in here. Okay, so let's just say I wanted to create a new host. So I'm going to say so I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say add host. Okay, and that's how you'd add one of those hosts. Now, say I want to add new virtual machine, because that's really what I was looking for. New virtual machine. Okay, this should look a lot like your computer or your book. We're going to come in here and I'm going to say, let's just go ahead and let's go to enter the name. So we'll call this training box. You choose where you want to place it. You might have some organizational things here. And let's see, new virtual machine. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just blew through that too quickly. Make sure it's in the right host. Sometimes you'll have more than one. Select the storage. What version of ECXI we want. It's going to be the most current. Over here is going to be Windows, Linux. We'll say it's Linux. We'll go Red Hat. That's fine. Here we can actually customize the hardware. Okay, and so this might be a little bit different than what your book looks like. I think it's about the same though. And so let's say you can just basically really customize anything you want in here, assuming your server has the capability. Here you have pass-through, just like we were talking about before. Let's see. Host device. You can just. The reason I chose host device is I want to click on connect on power on. Okay, so we'll connect to that device on power on. Now this host, once it's started, will believe that it's on real hardware. It won't know that it's actually running on software. In other words, it's lied to, which is wonderful, because then we can change things as we go along. Now, like I said, one of the neat things is we can come in here and we can later on change this stuff. I get 2 CPUs if I wanted to. I'm not going to, but I give 2 CPUs. I can change how much memory I give it. It will always give you a default, what it thinks you'll need, but you really should look to think about what are my system requirements, how much memory should they have, how much storage should they have, that type of thing, and adjust to that. And you can always readjust later, but it's better to think about it and make changes when appropriate. I mean, when you're actually starting, I should say. Then if you have to, you can make changes later on. But again, you can change any of this stuff. So it's absolutely remarkable what you can do. So let's look at memory, for example. Memory is a big issue, okay? So reserve all guest memory, meaning lock it. So if I say you have to 4 gigs, no one else can use it. Okay, I'm not going to do that, but I could. And so here I can actually set up reservations as well on how much you get. Here's the limit of what you're allowed to have. Here's what you're normally allowed to have. I mean, it's just unbelievable what you can do. Okay, right now it's unlimited. Now remember, I'm not really able to guarantee they'll get as much memory as I'm telling them. It's basically what I'm lying to them about. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this. But if I want to at any time, I can adjust those settings. I can go back and make changes, and it's just seamless. It really is. You just need to know what you're doing. You don't want to pull the rug from anyone, that kind of thing. You can add adapters. You can just about do anything you want. So this is some of the great power of VMware. And then you can, we'll talk about vMosh later and that kind of thing, but you can really do so much more. It's like, if you think of the client-server model as opposed to the bus topology or something like that, peer-to-peer topology, and how you'd have to go all the different devices and configure them. Well, VMware is centralization on steroids. You are completely centralizing all of your management, a lot more than you ever could have. Okay, and so that's basically the idea. I hope this was useful. I kind of wanted to go to show you a real environment, although you really do use it, real environment in our labs, but I have a little bit more flexibility. This is an older version, like I said, but it has a lot of the same infrastructures and a lot of the same tools. Not quite as nice. I need to update this pretty badly, but that's really it for Chapter 10. I just wanted to give you guys a quick look at it. You don't have any labs for Chapter 10, but just play with it, really. All right, thanks.